What do you think the barriers are for people who haven't considered coming to a classical music concert?
I suspect some people are scared by the whole genre.
I think it's that kind of, how do I behave?
That it's somehow posh, that it's not for you, that you have to dress up in a certain way.
The mass media likes to portray orchestras as stuck in the 19th century, dressed in penguin suits.
It's always kind of, what do I wear? How do I behave? What the other people be like? They're going to look down on me.
Very formal, very cold, perhaps.
Opera gets that particularly badly every year. People trot out the fact that you've got to dress up in bow tie and tails to go to the opera. And it's so far from the truth.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken friends before who've never been. It's like, why does the conductor keep walking on and off at the end? Why doesn't he just stay on stage? It's a bit random.
How do you respond to that?
I can't really. It's like, well, that's just the way it works.
The barrier is that education is the most simple thing. It's the fact that, for whatever reason, and it's happening more and more now in some areas and less in others, that there is less exposure to music when people are growing up at schools. There should be much more.
People get very worried, I think, about kind of being shut in for 2 hours.
So from a marketing point of view, is that a bit of a problem for you?
Yes, because what you want to do really is you want people to come and try it, and people are not that willing to come and try something that they think is not for them. They just won't spend the money to come and do it.
People think it's socially exclusive, they think it's expensive, they think it's mostly old people. Okay, it's basically an older audience here, whatever. But none of those things really are true. There is nothing in the music that is exclusive. There's nothing in the Proms, for example, that is an exclusive event.
So yeah, I guess it all boils down to risk and whether it's the music, not going to enjoy the music, or the company, or the venue.
We have, I think, at least a century of cultural history for which I think we're all responsible as musicologists, critics, people who communicate music, because although those things aren't true in fact, they are true in a kind of imagination.
We're in a dangerous point now that we will never change it, because that's, a lot of people get very passionate about keeping it exactly the way it is.
With classical music in particular, I think going to a live performance when you see the people making the music is just a completely different thing.
And in the past, classical music and its presentation evolved over time. You've heard, lots of stories about how in Paris in the 18th century it was quite riotous going to a classical concert. There's all sorts of things going on in the audience. It's only relatively recently it's become a sedate, kind of quite, ritualised affair.
So how are you going about sort of trying to convince those people who feel reluctant about taking a risk? How are you doing that?
It's new media makes that easier. Obviously, we can put out video and audio so they can actually see and hear what it is that they're going to experience when they come. But it's also about showing what we are and what we do in such a way that they don't think, oh, this is going to be a really horrible evening, I'm going to hate it.
Cynical people would say, well, if it's a success, then you must be able to prove that you've had somebody who wouldn't otherwise have considered going to a concert, having seen you on Twitter or Facebook or online, and then sort of... Do you have that kind of proof?
Yes, people will come back and say that they saw it on Twitter and they went and came along and they had a good time and thank you very much and it was amazing, and they come back again. There's been one particular guy recently who brought his girlfriend, I think, for Valentine's Day, and he wrote on Facebook, what do I wear? To which I was able to say, well, wear whatever you like, it doesn't matter. And then he came back to say, oh, thank you so much. And a few weeks later come back and say, I'm thinking of becoming a member so I can come more times. And what's coming up. So
what does that feel like for you?
It's brilliant. It feels like, it's like one person at a time inviting them to the orchestra, so that's quite hard graft, I suppose. But as a marketer, that's what you need, to keep you going, knowing that people want to come and they're in a really good time.
Welcome to yet another wonderful night shift here at the QEH.
The strapline for the series is classical music minus the rules. So I guess we decided to kind of think about some of the things that people found off-putting and try and get rid of them. You're allowed to walk in and out whenever you want. You're allowed to go and get a drink. You're allowed to talk to your friends. You're allowed to clap when you want. Often people don't take advantage of those things, but I think it's almost about knowing that they can do if they want to. If you hate the music, you can just get up and leave, and people aren't going to give you a funny look.
Is it too lofty a thing to say that you're breaking down barriers? I mean, is that how you think about it?
That's the aim, I guess, yeah. I don't think...
Or does it feel quite normal to you now?
Well, now it feels normal, because we've been doing it for 3 years, but
right.
when we first started, it felt quite risky, yes, and we worried a lot about how our regular audience would react to it, and would people hate it? And yeah, some of the press do hate it, but then
Do they?
yeah.
And what do they say?
Well, they didn't like the fact we break down the piece into chunks and that people can move around. But to be fair, it's not designed for music journalists. It's designed for people who've never been before. So, or for people who have been but want it in a different format.
And it's the way it's presented, or it's the perception that people have of the way it's presented. I wonder whether also it's to do with the language that is used when describing or talking about classical music.
If you go to a film and then somebody says, oh gosh, what was that film you went to last night like? And you say, well, it was like this film that you might have heard of, a bit like that, but a bit like another film you've heard of. If I've not heard of either of those films, then you're completely stuck. So you need to think of another way of talking about it.
What is important and very difficult to do in writing or communicating about music is to try to get a sense of the event that happened.
You need to find a way of talking about what it's going to be like to be there, not about saying this composer learnt with this person and this artist has played in the following places, because that is actually it's fine, but it's actually meaningless to many people.
But I think we need to be more confident, and therefore that means not just sort of saying that what we do or what the sector does or what classical music does is one thing, is one potential option that people have. No, we need to say that this particular art form, this thing that's happening, orchestral concerts in this place, do things that no other part of culture can. They are unique. Not to say they're better than other things, but they're different.
That's one of the things that I think is really important about coming to concerts for the first time, is to allow yourself not to enjoy it. You don't enjoy every piece of art you see, you don't enjoy every meal you eat, so why on earth should you feel that you have to enjoy every piece of music you listen to?